Hi, I'm Yemado, and I'm about to have a productive conversation with Mike Vardy.
Welcome to A Productive Conversation. I'm Mike Vardy, and I'm joined this time around by Yemado. Yemado is the foremost teacher in North America, Boabom, and I had to ask him how to pronounce that as well during our preamble, which we touch on a little bit during our conversation here today, which if you stick around, we do an exercise that will help you learn more about what this practice is and reinforces some of the things we're going to be talking about. So make sure you stick around to the end of the episode to hear that. But Boabom is an ancient Tibetan system of meditation, relaxation, and self-defense. So that got me curious right out of the gate. We talked about that, what led him to going down that path. We talk about the goals that people have when they approach this practice and much more. Now, he's brought this practice to thousands of students around the world over more than 2 decades of teaching, and he has trained Boabom teachers around the world. He's the creator of the Boabom Journey, a 5-star app and video course that allows anyone to learn the practice on their own schedule. He's the director of the Boston School of Boabom and the principal school, that's what it is, the principal school that's dedicated to Boabom in North America. He's also the director of the Boston School of Boabom, the principal school dedicated to Boabom in North America. I know I've pronounced it about 3 different ways in the last little while, but it is I want to try to get it as close as possible. He is also the co-translator and editor of a number of books around the subject. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Yemado, a productive one at that. Rather unique productive one too. Enjoy. Yemado, thanks so much for taking the time to join me today. We've had a great preamble conversation. Sometimes I wish I could record those, but it doesn't allow for the camaraderie or any kind of rapport to be formed. I think when you don't hit record, so for those that are inside baseball knowledge here that want to know more, is I schedule a little bit extra time, number one, for technical difficulties in case that happens, but also just to get a bit of a rapport with someone who I've never really had the chance to encounter before, or even for somebody who's returning, just to kind of get aligned. And the fact that we had some really interesting, and I would even go far as to say deeper conversations that I usually would have off the get-go was great. So I'm glad to have you here. Obviously during the intro, people heard a little bit about you, but I want to know right out of the gate, like Boabom, I had never heard about this before. I came across your work. So can you share not only what it is, but what led you to it?
Sure. Well, so Boabom, in the simplest way to say it, is it's a Tibetan art of, like to say, relaxation, meditation, and self-defense. And that encompasses obviously a lot of things. It encompasses breath work, it encompasses exercise, it encompasses meditation that's moving, meditation that's still. And within all of it, we have these different kinds of movement systems, some which are slow and stretched out, elongated movements, kind of, they look a little like a Tai Chi, and others that are faster, that have elements of defense, but always we're working without contact and without competition. And I can talk a little bit about the reasons behind that a little later. And I guess what drew me to Boabom was really the energy that I got from learning it and from practicing it. Boabom has always been taught in this progressive way, which means that you learn something new every class. So you start as a beginner, you with your teacher, and you learn something very simple. You learn some warm-ups, you learn some simple movements. And then in the next class, you repeat all of that and you add something new. In the next class, you repeat all of that and you add something else. And so little by little, you build and create things that you might not think you'd be able to do if you just saw them from the outside. Because of this progression, you just get into more and more complex things as your body is able to. And on top of that, you really build you get a lot of energy from doing it, from practicing it, from the combination of like strong physical movement with breathing and with this meditation movement that you create. And one of the ways you do that is through the progression. because the class never becomes like a routine.
Right.
And because it's never a routine, the mind doesn't have time to wander when you're practicing Boabom. Our minds are always like, what's this? What's that? Always, responding to different stimuli. But in an hour-long class, you can be there, you can be breathing, you could do many, many different movements. And at the end, you've moved, you've sweated, you've burned energy, but you feel light, you feel refreshed, and you feel energized. And that feeling was really unlike anything I had experienced before. I started when I was an adult, but a younger adult. And so then going from there to sharing that with other people was a very natural progression for me. So, wow, I really want to share this. I really want to teach this and help other people to learn about this.
The progression part I find fascinating because, like productivity, how people progress is very personal. Not everybody can move forward at the same time at the same pace, right? It's why I tend not to teach how to do something and more of a why to. And then I kind of leave people with enough to get them going in the right direction, but at their own pace. Is that how this works as well? Or do you feel like in a class that is there going to be that one person or a couple people that are just not able to get to that point? Or is it uniform in terms of classes? Or do people get to decide what they're going to add? And you could have different people doing different things in a class setting, for example.
So in general, in a class setting, everybody's doing the same.
Okay.
You're following the teacher, and we kind of build the class in a way that obviously there's always going to be a difference, right? Between people. And some people will be more quick to learn something and other people will take more time. But some people will be better to learn with their arms, but the steps and the kicks will be more difficult, or vice versa for somebody else. So there's always a big range. And one thing that I try to do in my teaching, that I try to instill in the teachers that I train, is this capacity to bring everybody and to help everybody along and everybody to learn together. So it's not like, how do I put it? This also gets this idea of non-competition,
right?
Because when we think about non-competition, it's not just that we don't go out and fight with other people and see who wins. It's also that in the class we try to create an environment of non-competition, meaning, and one thing I'll say is a little tangent on this is that just because somebody is physically doing the movements a little better doesn't mean that they have the same focus,
right,
or attention or other elements which are harder to gauge or harder to see. And so by keeping the class kind of together as a group and advancing as a group, everyone is able to focus on their own progression.
Okay.
Right? As opposed to the progression of other people around them. And for me, I enjoy all of my students, but I love it when I see a student who comes from having a lot of challenge or difficulty with the movements, and they progress a lot, right? And you can really see them learn. I think that's incredibly, incredibly valuable. And I think I don't really feel like I've seen anybody ever who's missed out because they, learned a little more quickly than the rest of the class, because they still get the opportunity to practice the movements and put energy into it and create that meditation and movement for themselves at the same time. And what happens is people, a class advances, they learn coordinations, they get to work together a little bit, and then go on to, other things from there. And classes kind of graduate together from one level to the next and the next. And one of the nice things about it is it creates a kind of a camaraderie inside of the class without necessarily, you don't necessarily know what your classmate does or how old their kids are or whatever, but you know how they move.
Right.
Which is a different way of knowing somebody. And it can be very powerful and very kind of bonding.
Well, there's a vulnerability there too, right? There's a vulnerability in that area, which I wonder do you feel that, we talked a little bit about this before we hit record, there's this embracing, and it seems to be growing, of Eastern kind of methods, philosophies, ways of of kind of making your way through the world. And what I mean by that is, especially in the Western world, is there's always this go, 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 fast, 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 now idea. And I think that we are, I wouldn't say distant. I think there's a group of people that are trying to distance themselves from that, like that inhumane pace. And I wonder if this is just another a way that allows people to do that without escaping. I think that's the key too, right? Like there are lots of people that they will find ways to escape the day to day in ways that may not be have lasting benefits in the same ways that, say, a practice like journaling or meditation or Boabom might. So do you find that people who are coming to you and that are exploring this are they like, what are some of the reasons that they're coming to you for this kind of practice?
I mean, there's a lot of reasons. I mean, one thing I wanted to say, just as a
Sure.
little point that I thought of when you were saying that, is that I think sometimes people go 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 to run away,
Yeah.
right? Because they're running away from like looking at themselves. And so I find that my students, the people who come to Boabom, are looking. They can be looking for many different things. They can just be looking for the physical exercise. A lot of people come looking for martial arts, but without contact or without
Mm.
competition, um, because they don't like that aspect. That aspect makes them stressed. So we have a lot of, a lot of our students are basically mixed, male and female.
It's one of the reasons I've stayed away from martial arts, to be honest, is I don't want to get hit in the face. I don't want to get injured.
Exactly. And I've had many students over the years who were injured in all different kinds of
Yeah.
practices, and they want something that's like a lower impact. And they don't want to worry about that contact. And you have other people who are thinking, well, I can do my exercise, I can move, and I can meditate at the same time. Um, and and that can be powerful for people because they say, okay, they commit. I'm going to do this 1 or 2 hours a week, and I'm going to be away, totally away from everything else, and enforcing that on themselves. And they make the commitment; they're going to do it, and they come and do it, and they get all of this like positive energy from that. And so then that kind of infiltrates their life little by little. It's like, the couple hours a week of practice is like it's like two countries, right? They have a border,
Yep.
and then inevitably there'll be crosstalk between the borders. No, there's no way. And so you can have the rest of your life, but you have your little by little your practice, and you do that over time, and it really can influence the way you feel and the way you think and the way you respond to situations. I was just talking with a student the other day who like twice in 1 week had gotten, once she got hit on her bike, the other time somebody just almost hit her, and then both times people started yelling at her, and she kept her cool.
Mm-hmm.
And she, and she was obviously shaken, but in the moment she was quiet and she was calm. And she was like, this is the defense, right? This is something I like to talk about, is that I don't think about defense just as a physical defense, because it's, the physical interaction is not so common. We
Yeah.
hope, if we're lucky, right? But the psychological defense is hugely important.
Well, yeah, because
Right? And how do we react? How do we deal with? Because around us, I live in a city. I live in Boston, right? There's people, there's cars, there's bikes, there's buses, there's honking, there's yelling, and then you go online and there's news and elections and everything, right? It's like a constant barrage, and naturally, people are going to be stressed out, and they're going to unload that stress on you, with their horn, with yelling, or whatever. And so one of the big ideas of defense in Boabom is having a way to not take that into yourself, right? Not to feel that stress, but to kind of see it and let it go.
Yeah.
To be, and I think of that in a way as resilience.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because, as I was saying, there's a lot of people that are trying to get away from the pace and the speed. There's others that feel almost like you pointed out, the escape. The go 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 is like a way of like, it's a version of processing a life versus living a life, I think, in a lot of ways. And that gets down to we touched on this again prior to recording, just briefly, the idea of quantity over quality, and this imbalance in my world of, you know, what is productive? Is it productive to do a lot of things and do them okay? Or is it productive to do fewer things and do them really well? Or to bring it to the personal perspective, is it better to do a lot of things but not have them, they're like empty calories,
Hmm.
versus, you know, fewer things, but man, they're like the real meal deal. Like they're a gourmet feast, so to speak. And I feel like these kind of practices can help, to your point, for lack of a better term, center you to allow you to give you the space. Because we talk about time all the time. Like, I mean, I've talked about this before, but space is equally important, because space is, you can't really measure it in the same way. Like, there's no chronological measurement of space. Time, yes. And we know that there's chronos, which is like chronological time, and kairos, which is more like time in a more qualitative sense. And then there's a few of them. But with space, it's like, what takes up that space? And in a moment like where somebody is angry or frustrated or stressed or any of those, what you do in that space can help improve or dilute your relationship with time as you make your way through it. So, um, why do you, when someone takes on a practice such as this, is it, do you, like, what's the goal, do you feel, as a teacher? You know, if it is there a goal even, but I mean, if there is one, what would that be for those that go through, you know, your teachings and go through Boabom? Is like, what, you know, ideally when someone comes to you and they have an idea of an outcome that they want, because most people do.
Hmm.
Um, what would that be for you? Is it different for every single person, or is there like a more of a general idea of like, this is what it can offer you?
It's a good question. And it's my goal can be different from the goal of the student,
Oh, we're back to
right?
nuance again.
But but no, but I'll say
No,
it's
I,
interesting because the thing I want to say about that
yep.
is that my goal isn't necessarily right,
Yeah.
right? But also, like this, it like takes two to tango, right? Like
Mhm.
as a student, you need to put something in. As a teacher, you need to put something in.
Yeah.
Um, and I think fundamental or basic goals that somebody would come to me with are: I want to be in better shape. I want to learn to breathe. I want to take time. I want to define this space. I want to find more. Something we talk a lot about is balance. I want to find more balance.
Mm.
And then what does balance mean? Like, I think you can. The interesting thing about something like Boabom is that you can take it in a very simple way, in like you practice and you learn and whatever, but you can take it in a more deep way. And you go and you use what you kind of develop in the class, and what you develop over time as a way to see into yourself and learn more about yourself. So you have the physical aspect, right? Something as simple as like, oh, look at the difference between the sides of my body, right? Or, oh, I forgot that I hurt my knee 25 years ago. And that's why this side is this way and this side is that way. And I need to take care. Or, oh, I'm not 21 years old anymore. And I need to, change the way that I'm approaching exercise. Um, or, oh, I don't have the same energy today as I did last week. What's going on with me?
Mhm.
Which I think is a very valuable piece of meditation.
Absolutely.
Um, is over time we set like a baseline, and the deviations from that baseline can be a way for us to learn about what's going on with ourselves. And maybe we can see, oh, something's happening. We didn't really realize it consciously. Um, but, and so then other pieces that people can be looking for are goals. I mean, my goal is for every student to have a positive experience, right? And to feel better in their body and to feel better in their mind. That's my goal.
Mhm.
100% for everybody to have that experience, in whatever way they need. Um, and my hope is that people can use this teaching, um, to learn something about themselves, like I was saying just a moment ago, right? Develop something about themselves and maybe find ways to overcome challenges in their life, right? If they tend to run away, why are they running away? Or if they tend to overprogram, why are they overprogramming? What are they doing? And learn to take that breath. Um, and another thing that I found a lot is if students will come with this idea like I can't sit down and meditate. So I want to try moving meditation. I want to try moving meditation because I've never been able to like sit down and focus. And so if Boabom can help those people to find the benefits of meditation from whatever angle. I've had so many students come and say that and practice for a time, and then they're able to sit down and meditate. Not that that's the end goal, right? But it's a wonderful benefit, especially for people who have trouble sitting down and have trouble being focused in a seated way. Because when you move, your body works in a different way, and it's almost like we trick the mind.
Yeah.
Because instead of being there and saying, I'm going to do this thing, we say, okay, I'm going to move my arm. I'm going to, move my leg. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to do all these things. It's like a little kid, right? You have like a 3-year-old. You tell the 3-year-old to calm down. The 3-year-old says, okay. And they run like crazy. You want them to calm down. You take them to the park. You buy them on the swings. You read them a book. You do all these things. And at the end, they're finally relaxed. And the mind is like that. It needs stimulation and different things to get to that point.
Well, and I think the other thing you brought up, which I think is interesting, is expectations. Is we, and actually I had a conversation yesterday with someone about the two things that really can go a long way with others, like, the dynamic elements of relationships with others, which, by the way, it's funny. People are like, oh man, I wish things would stay the same. I wish, like, people think from a static perspective, which sounds great in print, like in thought, but then you realize, God, things would get boring. Like, it wouldn't be like very few things are static, like from our perception, right? Like, our birthday, that's the same day every year. Like, there's certain things that are static. Taxes are due on this day, and they're often fixed in time as those dates, right? But even they can be nuanced, right? Because, like, it falls on a holiday this year. Well, I guess that it's due the next day or whatever. But proper communication, like, consistent, something you can sustain, but also managing expectations where it's, like, which is why I asked you, like, what their goal is. If your goal is to go in, so I'll give an example. We're getting some house renovations done right now, some repairs actually. And we think it's just a small repair. So in our mind, this shouldn't take very long because we're looking at it from our vantage point. And the person who's the expert comes in and says, yep, we have all this, but just so you know, this will take some time. We want to get you back into your place where we want to get you back to normal as quickly as possible. So that doesn't tell me anything other than reinforce in my head, oh, this will be quick. If they've said that, then and then all of a sudden it's 3 months later, like, but you said it was going to be quick. Well, this is actually pretty quick. Okay. But if you had told me that up front, then that would have alleviated all of this stressor, especially considering that it's not just me you're dealing with, it's my daughter and my son and my wife. Like, there's a whole bunch of moving parts, just like you have moving parts. And I think we go into things like meditation, journaling, all these with these ideas of expectations that are either reinforced by what we see online, what we look at, right? So, the Beatles meditated and look what they did. They made some amazing music. Or journaling. Wow, look what, someone does morning pages and look, they were able to write this amazing book. Or they've been able to not go to therapy because they journal or whatever, which again may not necessarily be a replacement, but journaling can certainly be therapeutic. Where instead, because the difference in that whole puzzle is you coming to it, there is that nuance. There is that. So how do you help? How does the work that you do and in your experience, making sure that expectations are kind of not couched, but just at least there's this understanding of this is what like, there's no winning in this. There's no like you get to, and we talked about this before we're hitting record. Like no one when they're done journaling, it's not like, all right, that's it, journaling's done. Like that's it. I don't have to, same thing with exercise. Well, you know what? I did this 30-day exercise program. Now I don't need to exercise anymore. Those kind of things. How do you help them, kind of manage expectations in a way that's going to benefit them over the long haul with something that really isn't a box that you check off?
It's a difficult, I mean, it's a complex question because there's a lot of nuance there, right? But I think that, I don't know if I'd say I have a lot of students who come and say, I'm looking for, maybe I do.
Like, this is what I want to get out of this. Like very, very clearly. Yeah.
I think that like most people who I encounter, and maybe this is just like a slightly, a self-selecting group, are looking for kind of not vague things, but things that are not necessarily super quantifiable. Right. Like I want to feel better. I want to feel better in my body. I want to feel better in my mind. Right. I think that if you're looking for something really quantifiable, you're going to the gym and you're bench pressing or, and carrying the weight and stuff like that. And that's not what's going on in this kind of practice. I feel like there's a little bit of selection with that.
Sure. Really quickly, it's like journaling, right? Like people who write in their journals are like, this is what I did today. This is what the weather was like. This is like, and they're using those metrics that are very quantitative, but they don't tell the whole story. And from what you're telling me, and I figured that's what you're, I mean, I as much as it was a complex question, I kind of had a sense that that's what the answer would be, or at least some version of it, because that quality, like we hear, measure what matters, and you can't manage what you don't measure, but qualitative stuff is so damn difficult and hard because you don't see it right away. Like the meditation practice, right? Like the idea of, well, if I just meditate for longer, it'll work. Or if I meditate 4 times a day, it'll work, right? Like this idea of attaching something rather concrete and objective to something that is subjective, that's a playground that you may not want to spend time in too much.
And I think can be a reason why people have difficulty, right? Because they're putting a goal on something that doesn't necessarily have a goal.
Right.
Because it's not quantifiable. It's even difficult to talk and write about it. And you were talking about, people see this or people see that. It can be difficult to tease out. Like there's thousands of years of marketing around what meditation is, right?
Yeah.
But none of us is going to be the Buddha.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's not us.
Yeah.
Understand? And that's not like 99 effectively 100% of people. That is not the end.
But what if you become enlightened? Then what? Like that's the thing, right? It's like, I'm enlightened now. Okay. It's the idea of, oh man, there's so much, like people say, I want happiness. Well, you can't have happiness without sadness. Those are two, but contentment, that'd be kind of cool. Like if I could be content most of the time, it doesn't sound sexy. It doesn't sound as appealing as being happy all the time. But if being happy all the time often puts you in a Pollyannish kind of state, it you're missing something, right? When you go too far in one direction, you're missing something. Whether if you go too far to the left, to the right, not talking political here, but you could argue that. Black, white, like Anthony Bourdain once said, and I'm paraphrasing here, like he'd like to spend time in the gray. And to me, these practices, journalings like this, meditation, Boabom sounds like this, even for lack of a better term, practicing one's faith is largely in the gray. It's in the middle, but societally, we, at least in Western culture, we don't like, the middle because it's messy, it's nuanced, it doesn't give us clear, like we can wrap our teeth around it and hold on to it answers. It's more like ephemeral to a degree, right? So the qualitative aspect is something that is very difficult to measure and therefore often kind of cast aside. It's forsaken for quantity And then we end up not having balance. To back to your point about balance, like effort. People go, oh, like I put in a lot of effort. Okay, well, how much? Like some will go, yeah, great. That means you put in a lot of effort. But a lot of effort for me versus a lot of effort for you, there's so many varying degrees in there. It's not something that you can necessarily quantify. No one's going, well, I put in 70% effort. I put in 80% effort. Well, that's great. But the person who put in 80% effort had to do that because they struggle with this. Whereas the person who put in 70%, they just get it easier. So therefore it doesn't. So quantity often can be a misnomer, right? Like a quantitative, there needs to be more. And I think Eastern philosophies tend to do this, the blue zones of happiness, all that stuff. Ikigai, the idea of, what is it? What's move a lot, lift heavy things, like just those things, as opposed to the high intensity 7-minute workout, or the argument from There's Something About Mary. I remember that clip where the guy's like 6-minute abs. And then Ben Stiller's, well, what happens when somebody comes out with 5-minute abs? And the guy's like, no, 6 minutes. It's 6 minutes. There's no 5 minutes, right? But there's always somebody, like if you got somebody saying it's going to 10x your productivity or 10x your results. Well, somebody's going to come along with 11x at some point, or 20x or something. And that's going to, like, to your point, the meditation, there's tons of, hell, Marcus Aurelius's meditations book is journaling, proven to be standing, that thing is old. And he never wrote that to be published, as Ryan Holiday has shared so many times. Meditation, the idea of, why has it stood the test of time? The things that stand the test of time aren't because of quantity. They're because of quality. Quantity is just the repetition that thing has happened again and again. Quality is really what makes things stand the test of time, as far as I'm concerned.
And they touch on something that's fundamentally human.
Yes.
Right? Meditation is something that's fundamentally human from whatever perspective you want to take on the word. You can take the kind of Eastern, meditation practice. You can take on a more Western, like meditating on something, like kind of thinking or spooling out ideas. Those are fundamentally human, and people have been doing them for as long as they have been people.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I think it's amazing that we live in this time where we have access to so many different teachings and so many different ideas. It's incredible. Like even 50 years ago, it's people, there were a few Buddhist centers, maybe a little longer, maybe
Sure.
we go back like 8 years or whatever. But these things were still like coming to the West. And in the East, a lot of these were reserved for specific classes of people. It's not that anybody could go, or even in like the old Tibetan systems, it wasn't the everyday people who rose in the ranks and became lamas. Those were the children of the aristocrats, right? So now we live in a very like small d democratic moment, but at the same time, it's like a double-edged sword, because maybe in the old times, and there were obviously like restrictions to this, but everybody in the place was the same religion. There were no other churches around, right? No other synagogues, whatever, right? And so if you wanted your practice, that was your practice. Now that worked for some people, it didn't work for other people, but you didn't have a choice. And now you have hundreds and hundreds of choices. The problem with this,
you have hundreds and hundreds of choices.
The paradox of choice, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, and when people become too much of a dilettante in, jumping from one thing to the next, you lose something which I think is fundamental to the depth of any practice, which is that no matter what you do, if you do it and you keep doing it for long enough, you will come face to face with yourself, and you can't, and you will smack right into this wall. And what do? Do you like run away to the next thing, or do you say, what is this wall made of? Is there a way over it? Is there a way around it? Is there a way under it? And I think that there's a lot of value in going deep. Exactly what you're saying, quality over quantity, because no matter what it is, now obviously there are some things but we don't need to talk about that, right? But no matter what it is, in this broad range of like very generally positive ideas and systems and whatever, You practice it for long enough, you're going to learn a lot about yourself.
Yeah.
You're going to learn a lot about how how you how you work and how you feel, and how you can develop yourself. And I think that's really, really valuable.
So there is so much more that we could talk about, and I definitely want to have you back on because we could dive deeper into the idea of quality. I mean, Robert Pirsig's book on quality. If you're looking to read a book about quality, I mean, yes, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance is his initial work that talks about it. He talks about it in Lila as well, but his posthumous release that his editor and his wife put together called On Quality is a great, like, kind of someone who spent their entire life really studying the idea of quality with a capital Q. So much, so valuable. So there's so much more we could go into, but before I let you go, initially I was going to say, and when we hit the preamble of our conversation, I was going to, like, hey, can you explain how someone can get into it? But instead, we're just going to get into it. We're going to do a demonstration of some kind of exercise that. So for you that's listening right now, you're going to get a bit of a tease as to what what Yemado does. So if the floor is yours, let's go through this exercise.
Great. So yeah, so what I'll do is I'll teach you a simple breathing technique. And now we're in a podcast, I can't teach you a movement. But the breath is the fundament of all of this. And I think that, being mindful and being conscious of our breath can really help us in any situation, to kind of come back to a center and help us find balance, like we were talking about before. And what I'll do is I'll teach you this breathing, and then we'll do a very simple meditation around it. And I think simplicity is like super important, right? Because if things are too complex, they're too difficult to access in the beginning. I have a school here in Boston. I have an app, which I can tell you a little more about at the end, where you can get more complexity. But so we'll do this in two parts. The first part, I'll teach you a breathing technique. So what I want you to do is put your tongue behind your top teeth against your palate. And we're going to inhale through our nose, and we're going to make this sound. And then just relax. And when we inhale, we're like compressing our nostrils a little bit to kind of give the air a little bit of pressure as it comes in. So again, we'll put our tongue up against our palate, and we'll breathe in through our nose. Now we'll drop our tongue, we'll round our lips, and we'll exhale like this. And when you exhale, I want you not to just use your stomach and not to just use your chest, and definitely not just your throat, but I want you to try to use the whole breathing system so that the energy or the column of air that you feel goes through the whole breathing system. You're creating like this solid column of air. So let's do this again. We'll breathe in through our nose, drop our tongue, round our lips, and exhale. Very good. One more time, breathe in, inhale. Drop your tongue, round your lips, and exhale. Very good. And this breathing we use in many different rhythms and variations through the class. When we do slow movements, we can use long, slow breathing like this. When we do faster movements, we can breathe faster and with more energy. And then this simple meditation will use this breathing plus a visualization. And what I want you to do is close your eyes and imagine that all around you is a field of positive energy. And when you breathe in, I want you to take this positive energy in, right? It's like something very nourishing, like a delicious soup. You take it in. You feel, when you contain the air, you feel that energy go through your whole body from your toes to the top of your head. And then when you exhale, I want you to feel all the tension, all the stress, all the negative energy going out and dissipating. And we'll do this 3 times. So close your eyes, tongue up, inhale, all that positive energy coming in. We expand, we contain and expand that through the whole body. And now we exhale, all the negative out, all the tension out, and all the stress out. Again, inhale. all the positive energy in, expand through your whole body, and exhale all the negative out, all the tension out, all the stress. One more time, inhale all the positive in, expand through the body, and exhale all the negative out, all the tension out, and relax. Very quiet. We're very relaxed. And then slowly we can open our eyes, like we're blinking slowly, and then blinking a little faster and faster. And you see, this is like a very simple meditation that I think you can do anytime, anywhere. If you have a private place where you feel comfortable, you can be very loud with the breathing. But if you're in a situation where you're more in public or you don't feel comfortable making a lot of noise, you can breathe silently in and out just through your nose. Use this visualization and take time with the breath. And I think you'll find that the first time you'll breathe, you might be a little stuck if you're very tense. The second time, maybe you'll break through some of that tension and be able to breathe a little longer. The third time, a little longer. If you need more, do 2 more. Go to 5, right? And by 5 breaths, you'll be able to breathe a lot more smoothly. And one thing I think of with this kind of meditation is that it's like a practice, right? And if we want to change our reaction in the face of stress, it's not going to happen overnight. A lot of times we need to just do something, and the something can feel awkward or uncomfortable or not right. I'm really forcing myself to do the breathing. But if I do that consistently, then over time, the change really will happen. And I'll get used to this feeling of quieting down, and it'll become embodied and natural. And that's really our goal. So don't worry if it feels awkward or uncomfortable in the beginning or doesn't achieve all the effect that you want it to. I know like everybody likes to say that you'll have an effect right away. I can't promise that, right? It's like anything. It's practice and repetition. And with practice and repetition, you can have a really great result with quality over time.
You know, I have to say that one of the things I noticed just doing the exercise, I mean, I have meditated. I haven't meditated in a while, though. I really need to get back into it, especially with some of the stuff that's going on right now. But, and that's the thing is if you have a practice, then the thing that's going on right now becomes just a thing. And it's always going to be, things will always be going on right now. But what I did notice is the shoulders. Like when I was doing the exercise, like because I hold my tension in my shoulders. And if I wanted physical evidence of it, not just the feeling of it, but, and you would have seen this because we can actually see each other, but Yemado would have noticed me actually like cracking my neck, and my neck actually could crack. Like I could do my head from side to side. If I'm holding too much tension, my neck will not do that. So, that was a great teaser, a great kind of exercise to get people, as we wrap up this episode. Hopefully they can take some of this and take what you're going to share with them before we wrap up to kind of expand upon this. So Yemado, thanks so much for taking the time to be here today. Where can people keep up with you and the work that you're doing?
Yeah. So the easiest way is to, check out our website and app. So boabom.com. If you take a look there, you'll learn more about this app and video course called Boabom Journey. And we have over 100 lessons. In different aspects, in warm-ups, in meditation, and also in these progressive classes, both in the gentle and the fast way. So that's kind of the easiest way. The lessons are all between 5 and 20 minutes. And you can get like a 7-day free trial with no commitment required. And then you can really see a little more about how this can work and how this can develop. I'll share a link, which I think you can put along with the podcast for all of your listeners, where you can get a free gift of a free video, where you can have like a kind of a broad introduction to the different aspects that we're learning, as well as some more of this meditation. If you're interested in learning personally, my principal studio is here in Boston. And we have all of our classes are hybrid. So they're in person and online. So even if you're not in Boston, you're welcome to come check out our school and take live classes with other students from around the world, where you would learn in this progressive way. It really depends on what works for you, right? We have many students who do both. So the app is nice because everything is simple, short, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. The classes are an hour, but you have that commitment of being there with the teacher and with your classmates. So those are, the two best ways to really learn and delve into Boabom. And, this progression that I talked about is something that can really go for a long time. You can keep learning for years and still be learning new ideas. But that doesn't mean we don't get a lot of these positive benefits from just the beginning. Right after a few classes, you feel lighter, you feel better, you feel more relaxed and more energized at the same time.
Yemado, thank you so much for sharing everything today and having a productive conversation with me.
It's been my absolute pleasure.
Thanks to Yemado for joining me on the program today. You can check out all of the relevant links, past episodes that I bring up or past episodes that are related, blog posts that are related, and so much more at mikevardy.com/podcast557. That said, wherever you get your podcasts, you can check out the show notes as well. So whatever you're using right now to listen to this podcast or absorb this podcast or consume it, be it Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, YouTube, what have you, you can check out the show notes there. And while you're doing that, subscribe to the show. That way you won't miss a single episode of what's to come. And that includes our regular Flashback Friday episodes where we review, repurpose, and even re-engage with guests from those episodes. So you don't want to miss those. We got some really cool ones that are scheduled coming up over the next several weeks, as well as some that you may have already been able to check out. And as a subscriber, you won't have to look very far because they'll be in your list of podcast episodes to check out. We also have a monthly series called PM Talks with my good friend Patrick Rohn. That's part of what you get as a subscriber, as well as fresh, shiny new episodes every single week. So become a subscriber and support the show. Another way to support the show is to check out the sponsors that you heard during our conversation today. Go to mikevardy.com/podcast sponsors. Click on any of those that resonate with you, and that way they know that we sent you. It helps keep the audio going strong here on A Productive Conversation. That's it for this episode of A Productive Conversation. Looking forward to bringing you the next one, which will be a Flashback Friday episode. You won't want to miss this one. So until next time, I'm Mike Vardy, the host of A Productive Conversation, reminding you to stop doing productive and start being productive. See you later.